Welcome to a new video series getting you started in Adobe Illustrator. My name is Arnold Faller, and in the next few videos I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the program, its user interface, and the most common tools you will be using. Illustrator is a widely used vector graphics tool that allows you to create logos, graphics, plans, layouts, and even motion graphics for film and mobile devices. And it's closely integrated with other Adobe products such as Photoshop in raster graphics, or InDesign when you're working with layout and desktop publishing, or together with Premiere and After Effects in the world of film and moving pictures. So without any further ado, let's get started with the user interface. I have structured this tutorial in a way that I want to make you familiar with using images, text, and graphic elements on simple first layouts. In the next tutorials, we will get more advanced in some of those topics. After starting Adobe Illustrator, we are right here at the welcome screen, and let me start with a few settings before we get right into it. When you look at the welcome screen, usually at the bottom here there's a list of recent files that you have used. Sometimes that's quite handy to pick, the couple of the last recent files. If you are in like a demo person like me, it's not quite good to have private documents here shown up in this task. So I'd like to show you a couple things that I usually change upon first startup under Edit Preferences. When you go to Edit Preferences, you get all kinds of preferences. I'm starting here with General, and then you can just go down with those settings. What I would like to start is first, I prefer not to show the home screen. That's under General. Here on the left side, somewhere in the middle, show the home screen when no documents are open. So when I start Illustrator, I usually don't have any home screen. That's the home screen showing up here. So when you don't show the home screen, you don't have the problem that the previous work is showing up. If you keep the home screen, you can also go to File Handling and Clipboard and just set the number of recent files to 0. So when you, like I have it to 0, that means none of the last files are showing up here. So that is, if you have the home screen, then 0 doesn't show any previous documents. And one other thing is when you start for the first time, and that is the units. And I generally prefer the following units. I like to work in millimeters when it comes to paper size and how thick will the stroke be and so on, while the type sizes, when you're using other programs like Word and so on, it's always points. Nobody exactly knows how much is a point, but we know, 11 or 12 point font size is right for this and this. So we are quite used to the points, but you can anytime also use millimeter here. But I would prefer no points at the stroke, and generally when it comes to paper and so on. So let's keep that to millimeter. So general was, I set the home screen off, and if you keep the home screen on, then you can always go to File Handling and define the amount of projects or format documents you see. Okay, so much for that. Let's get started. This is how it usually looks when you start up Illustrator, and let's start with File New. And then you already see, looking at the templates, you see kind of the areas in which Illustrator is used. So for graphics and mobile devices, you got all kinds of phones here, and also presets that come with Illustrator. You only have to, not presets, sorry, templates that you have to download if you see something that you like right away. Then we got the website, web graphics, and so on. So all kinds of templates here as well. Also, if you want to go for some ready-made format, where we are staying right now, what we start with is with a print layout. So I would like to start with a print layout, and I'm going to use an A4 piece of paper. So I'm going to use here A4 paper. I don't know why it still says point here for the size. Because it says points here. So we're going to use an A4. If you know how big it is, paper is always measured in millimeters. So here it is, and I'm going to use a landscape orientation because it's easier placed on the screen. So landscape, and I'm only using one artboard, so that means one page in Illustrator, and let's hit create. Stop. And here it is. So Illustrator, let's with the document open or with a new document started, I would like to explain you a little bit about the elements in Illustrator. So you got your, of course, you got the Windows toolbar on the top with everything that you find with buttons and so on. You also find it up here. Your workspace is called Essentials. You can see it right here. It's the Essentials workspace. Under Window Workspace, you can choose different ones. The difference between Essential and Essential Classics is that some of the properties in the Classic were still up here in a toolbar, and now they are all on the left side, the properties. But also what is important, workspaces can be reset. So if you mess up something, like you, for example, get the properties out and then close it, or I don't know what, get this toolbar out and close it, something like this. So you mess up your workspace, you can always go back to Window Workspace and the Essential is still on, and you just reset your Essential workspace. I hope this did not reset the preferences that I just did before. No, it didn't. The units, no. Okay, good. So now we're back in the workspace. Here is the toolbar on the left side. What is important is toolbars. There is that is the basic amount of tools. There's also a toolbars version where you can go for advanced, and you got a couple more. For the beginning, this should be all right. At the bottom of the toolbar, so somewhere at the bottom, you see two important things. That is what you know from Photoshop maybe as foreground and background color. In this case is for graphic elements the fill color and the stroke color. While, for example, let's look for the fill color. Elements can be filled either in a solid color, they can be filled in a color gradient, or they can have no filling. So if you want, for example, no filling here, then you make sure that the filling is on top, and then you click no, and you see it's no filling is clicked here. Or filled with a solid color, then you click on solid color. Sometimes some windows pop up on my second screen, so sometimes I forget to move them over. But in this case, something popped up. I thought they thought I want to change the color. So that was just switch between none, and the same for the stroke colors. You can change the stroke color or make no stroke or have a gradient stroke, which doesn't look good. Here again, the color pops up where you can pick your color. My document right now, it's an A4 piece of paper, landscape. Here it is, called Untitled. The little star here says it's not saved yet. And we are at a zoom state of 136%. We have a CMYK mode, which is quite normal for printing on paper. Usually you work in a CMYK mode. And on the right side, you have tabs for properties, layers, libraries, and so on. So we'll continue with this a little bit later. For right now, we stick to properties. I would like to show you the most important tools that we use here, and the one that you usually are on, which is the kind of default tool, is the selection tool, which allows you to select and move and rotate and scale objects. The selection tool. All those tools have keyboard shortcuts, and the keyboard shortcut for the selection tool is the most important one, just like in any other Adobe program. This is V, like in victory. So if you are in any other tool and then you press V, it will jump to the selection tool. That does not work when you are typing a text, because then the V will type a V. So the V works in any tool except the text tool. So that brings you to the selection tool. We have nothing right now to select, so let's see the next tool, and that is the zoom tool. Sometimes you want to zoom in, zoom out, and so on. So the zoom tool obviously has the keyboard shortcut C as in zoom. And with the zoom tool, you can, with one click, you can zoom in. So you magnify it with an Alt. You hold your Alt key and click. You zoom out, so it's getting smaller. With your space key, the space bar on your keyboard, you can hold it down and press it. That will give you a pan movement. So that is zoom in, Alt is zoom out, and then pan, you can move it around. While you are in the zoom tool, you can also use your right click. There's zoom in and zoom out. And the right click in Illustrator usually gives you all kinds of options that are common right now. So in this case, there's not too much zoom in and zoom out. So our A4 piece of paper, and I just saw it when I did the right click, I just saw the rulers in and rulers out. So sorry, let me move it to the center. One thing when you're working on paper is quite interesting because it is what you see is what you get. So the white piece is your piece of paper and the gray space outside where you can also place elements, but they will not be on the paper, they will not be printed and so on. When you are in the selection tool here, for example, you also can see on the properties here. If there's nothing selected, you don't see the property of any objects, but you see the properties of your artboard right now. And the artboard is an A4 paper. So you see right now the artboard units, I only have one artboard, and you can also go to edit artboard and then make it smaller or larger. So we keep it at A4 right now. Good. So now, before we bring in some elements, let me quickly show you how you save your project, and that will be, of course, File Save As. Illustrator is saving as an AI format. The AI, Adobe Illustrator, file saves all the content that is in the drawing with your document. So if you have pictures included, if you have graphics and text included, that's all into it, except if you have elements linked into your project. For example, later on I'll show you how to link pictures. That is dangerous sometimes, but be aware those pictures are not included into the Illustrator file. You can also save as a PDF, for example, if you want it as an end product, upload it somewhere and so on. You can also use an EPS, which is the same as a PDF, only as an Exchange format and scalable vector graphics and so on. So the Illustrator file, of course, the most common one. It keeps all the elements, keeps all the layers, all the colors that you have used inside your document. I'm not gonna save this, we're just playing around. Good. And I mentioned that you, yes, one more thing. If you don't want to reset your workspace just because you lost a window or you just closed it and you don't know how to get it back, here under Window, you can get all kinds of windows back. The ones that are checked are the ones that are open right now. So the properties are open. It looks like the layers are not open. Yes, they are open, but they're just behind the properties. So if they, now you see the layers is open and so on. You can just open them here and when you accidentally close them. Good. Then what's the next point? Yes, let's bring in some elements. As I mentioned, I would like to start with images, text, and graphic elements. The simplest part, I guess, is to get in some images. And what I would like to do is I would like to, on my layout, place one or two pictures. When you want to place an image in your document, you go to File, Place, and that then you search for your image, and you pick your image. And here's the first time you have to be careful. When you select an image, here is a button, Link, and sometimes this is turned on by default. So the difference between loading an image into your document and the other possibility, when link is on, then it's only linked into your document. Both have advantages and disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage of linking something is, of course, that if you, for any chance, rename or move the picture to a different location, Illustrator will not find it. It will ask you where is it and so on, but you have to search for it. What if you delete it accidentally? Then it's also lost in your layout. So if you want to make sure it's still inside, then you don't link anything. One big advantage for the link would be if you work with colleagues together and somebody is still photoshopping the images, so people are still working on some of those images, then you can just link it, and anytime you open it later, an updated version will be loaded, and you will always have the most most recent version in your layout. So that is a chance when you work on a presentation poster where some pictures, some plans are still updated, then you can link it. But be aware that you have to have your files in order. So in my case, I'm not going to link anything right now. So here's how it works. So you select your image and you go to Place, and here you see it hangs on your mouse, and then you just click and drag and drop your mouse, and then you can define the size of the image by drag and drop. If you do not click and drag it into your file, but just File, Place, and here it is, Place, and then you click only once, then the picture will be inserted into your layout in the size that is stored in the picture. You know that a picture, usually I say the only thing that's really important on images is how many pixels they have, like width and height, but there's also a document size stored, which is, you could call it the print size and so on. So there is a kind of a size measured in millimeter or centimeters stored, and when you just insert it with one click, then this is the size that it's inserted. In my case, that is really big. So if you look at it, so that is a really large image. Doesn't mean that the picture is having more pixels or is looking any finer. That is just the size that is stored in your image. So it's better to just drag it into your layout, and then you can define the size of the picture. If you want change the size of the picture later on, you can anytime, of course, without distorting it. I don't want to grab it here and distort it. Undo. That would also be possible. Then you can change the size of your image quite simply, either by taking it along one corner, and in order not to distort it, you have to hold your Shift key on the keyboard. That will drag it in with fixed proportions. It's not going to change the proportions of the image when you hold your Shift key. If you want to adjust the size of your image to a precise size, like, I don't know, like 100 millimeters, for example. Oh, it is almost 100 millimeters. Then you can go select the image and then check under properties, and here you can find under transform, you can find a couple of measurements. First of all, I'm going to click the maintain width and height proportions, because otherwise I will distort it somehow. And now if I type in 100 millimeters. That is 1000. Sorry. Here's 100 millimeters, 10 centimeters, and the corresponding height is 75 millimeter. The funny thing in Illustrator is, even if we have set our units to millimeters, you can type in whatever you want. Instead of 100 millimeters, I could type in 9 centimeters, for example. Of course, that's 90 millimeters. So you can type in whatever units that you want. For example, I could say that is 3 inch. 3 inch. There it is, 76 millimeter, and so on. So you can type in whatever units you want. If you don't type in any units, then of course it's the one that are default, and that's in this case millimeter, 100. Also, the position of the picture can be adjusted, and that is the first here, X and Y. But which point of the picture is measured? You can see it here, this little symbol. Right now, the center of the image is giving, you get the coordinates of the center of the image. Let's put this to the top left corner. The top left corner of the image now is the one where you get the coordinates from. Why did I pick the top left corner? Because that is also where the paper measuring starts. So on your paper, this point here is 0, 0. So if I type in at the position 0 and 0, you can see the top left corner of the picture, that is here, is placed at the top left corner of the paper or at 0, 0. If I move it away, you can also click it and drag it away. You can see that those values, of course, get larger, larger, the further I get away from the top left corner. You can also rotate it, some fixed angles here, or of course you can type in anything like 22 degrees, or you can always reset it to 0. Okay. The same thing, like scaling and moving, can be done by just with the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, or I said it, scaling is grabbing it at one corner and pull it out, but don't forget to hold the Shift key. You can also rotate your image to any angle by selecting the image a little bit outside of a corner, and then you can rotate it to whatever angle you like. Of course, returning back to 0 can be done here. Here is 2 buttons for flipping your image. So flipping along the y-axis, now it's flipped this way, or flipping it along the x-axis, and then it's on his head, horizontal or vertical. Okay? You also see that your image doesn't have a frame around it. You can tell so by selecting your image. And look here and the fill color and the stroke. And you can see the stroke is set right now to no stroke. Later on we're going to do other elements which will have a stroke around it, of course, if they're rectangles and so on. Let's get in another image. File, place. Get another image here, not link, place. I'm going to place it here in my picture. Again, I'm going to make it the same size. Select it over here and 100 millimeters. Now it's the same size. You will notice when you move around your image that sometimes here you see a pink or magenta guidelines. So, for example, if the top edge is right there where the bottom edge is, or if I place them at the same height, you can see that the center now gives you a little rectangle here. Also on the bottom, it will tell you they now align perfectly. Okay, let's make it smaller. The picture's a little bit smaller. Let's make it 50 millimeter. Also, sorry, you can also select both of them. If you select both and then change it to 50 millimeter, then we'll build same thing. No, I wanted a smaller picture because also when you have 3 pictures, but I just have 2. How do you copy a picture? You can try copy paste. Select one, copy and paste, and here's the other one. Or you can also select it, and while you drag it away, you hold your Alt key, and then it drags away a copy of it. And you see, as soon as you have 3 elements, it will also give you the opportunity right now to place them aligned under each other and in the same vertical distance between them. So here it is. Now they have the same vertical distance. Let's bring it away, make the distance larger here, and bring it and there's a certain point where the pink now says, here it is, my equal distance between the images. That helps you nicely to arrange images in your layout. What else is a great help on layouting a piece of paper is using the guidelines and the rulers. First of all, we don't see rulers. Usually you have rulers here showing you how big the paper is. Those rulers can be turned on and off. It's a shortcut, that's not the most important one, but under views you can have let me find it. Where is it? Rulers. I don't show, hide, smart guides, hide. Where is it? Oh, here, sorry. I thought it starts with show. So it's not called show, it's called rulers, and here it's show rulers. But it's Control R, R as in rulers. So if you remember Control R, you can turn the rulers on and off. Usually I have them on quite a lot. And when those rulers are on, you can also see that the top left corner is my 0, 0. So you can see 0 is here and also 0 is there. That gives you a little bit of a size component. And when you take your mouse on the ruler, you can drag out a guideline. So you can pull it out, and there you have a guideline, both vertical, both horizontal, and on the vertical guideline you can drag out a vertical guideline. These guidelines can be selected and then they turn dark blue, and then they can be moved or moved here. They can also be moved and snapped to already existing elements. So here and here. here, or let's just have it free floating. Those guidelines can also be selected and hit delete. It's just like a line that you delete, and you can drag out a new one. If you want those guidelines to be fixed, so you're not accidentally deleting them or accidentally moving them, you can go to View and find Guides here. Here you can hide them and show them again. You can lock them or you can clear them and so on. So this is here locking would then they stay in place. If you want to precisely place those guidelines at a certain, for example, I want to place them at 100 millimeters away from the left corner, you need to select your guideline, and when it's selected, the number here shows you how far it is away. Please make sure you choose the right one, because you see it's 80 millimeters and minus 2070 something. So one of them is totally useless, because that is it's only important how far it is away from an X direction. So this is important. Let's place it 100 millimeters away from this side, and 50 millimeters from the top. That is the other guideline. So in this case, the Y-axis is important. It is almost 50, but let's make it precisely 50. And now it's exactly 50 millimeters from the top. If I want to lock my guides, view guides and lock them, now they cannot be selected anymore and not deleted and moved. But you can still use your pictures and you can place them onto the images. They kind of snap onto the guidelines, so they snap, and you can still snap the second image, and you can still use the smart guides, because it will automatically also snap to the equal distance thing and so on. Okay, so that is a good combination if you want to place your pictures in your layout. That is almost anything. No, not, and there's a lot of other stuff about images, but for the beginning, I think that is enough. I just want to show you one more thing with images, and that is layers. So on your layers, we haven't paid attention right now. Let me view guides, and I'm going to clear my guides. Now they're gone. If you clear them, then they're really gone. And I'm opening my layers. So here, not like in other programs, like in CAD programs, where the layer order is basically alphabetic and so on. Here in this case, the layer order represents also the order on your piece of paper. So if something is in the layer order on top, it is also on top in the layout. So right now I only have one layer. So let's open up the one layer, and you can see inside are 3 images. The blue image, the one with the lagoon, is the one that is in the list on top. So it means when you place it, it covers all the other pictures because it is the one that is on top. Okay, in the list. If you take it in the list and you bring it, for example, you pull it down to the bottom position, then obviously it is hidden by the other images. So the order inside a layer represents the order directly ordered on your paper. What if you have more than one layer? Then the layers also represent the order. So if you have 3 layers, then of course the top one will cover or will hide the other ones underneath them, unless it's transparent and something like this. But let's make another layer. Layer 1, here's a little plus icon, and you can just hit plus. One thing, I usually prefer to have the layers open at the same time as the properties. So what I'm going to do is I pull them underneath, because properties only, here properties, that is the layers, and you just need, half or so. Have 2 things open. Here's the properties and here's the layers. It's enough to have the first part or so of the layer of the properties. You can also hide your elements or bring them out again and so on. So a lot of way to customize your interface. Let's get to the layers. Here's one layer, and I'm going to click at plus, and I'm going to create 2 more layers. The colors that you see here for the layers are just information. So when you select it, for example, it will have a blue frame around it, another one will have a red frame around it, and so on. When you select an element, the selected element shows up as a little rectangle here in blue, indicates selected art. So if I select two of them, which are on the same layer, it still tells me all the selected elements are on this layer. Let's bring an image to a different layer. So here's the image. I want to bring this one to layer 3, which is the top one. So you select your object. Then you take this little rectangle and pull it onto the other layer. One more time. This time I'm going to move it to layer 2. So I'm going to use the C image again. Here it's on layer 1. Take the blue thing and move it onto the other layer. So now if I place them on top of each other, you can see that the layer order, layer 3, layer 2, layer 1, will be represented here in the top, middle, and background. What is this circle here made for? If you have a layer with one click on a circle, you can select all the elements on this layer. So right now it's only one picture on every layer, but a click on the rectangle selects everything that is on this layer. So here and here. So if I want to move everything that is on layer 2 and bring it to layer 1, then you click here the button to select everything on layer 2, and then I take the red, which is all the elements, and bring it to the other layer. Now layer 2 is empty. You can just delete it. If you delete one that has content on it, you will get a warning. You're deleting a layer that has artwork on it. Oh no, I don't want to do this. Of course, with double click, you can rename it. And with the eye in the front, you can turn it on and off. And here, when you click, there's a little padlock. That means you can lock the content of the layer. So if let's create a new layer with the weird names. You can also change the layer order to pull one up and down. If you add another element, let's say I want to add another picture. When you click on a certain layer, before you add it, then obviously it will be added onto the new layer. So I select layer 3, file, place, and there is my new element placed on the new layer. In addition to the layers, you can also have folders where some elements in it. So it's called a sublayer, or in this case, you can take one layer and pull it onto another layer. And that will create layer and sublayer. It's not called folder, sorry, it's called sublayer. So the layer, and you have a sublayer. Of course, the order in this list stays the same. So when you expand all the elements, then the order here is the same as it is on paper. Okay? When you want to get it out of there, you can just take the layer and pull it back out again, and now it's not a sublayer anymore, but it's only 3 layers with a couple of images on it. Okay, so that is quite a simple way to handle the layers. So that is the most important functions of images. Let's just leave them here and continue to our next element. There's not so many options there, and that is for text elements. So text elements, and I'm talking about the simple plain text. That usually you place, of course, your text on a new layer. So let's create a new layer, double click, call it text. And on this text layer, it's highlighted the layer, I'm going to create a text element. Here are different text elements available. So there is the regular type tool. Then there is, not a big fan of, type on a path tool. When are you using, so the type tool, now let's start with the type tool and later on with the other ones. So the type tool basically has 2 functions. You can click once and then start typing your text. When you're done in this line, you just hit enter and you get another line. enter, and another line. When you don't want to add anything, you can enter, or you can just go to a different tool, and then you're done. Here's this empty enter in there. Double click, and I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to a different tool. And this is what I mentioned before. When you are in the text tool, you cannot use the keyboard shortcut V to get into the selection tool, because it's you will type a V and not get out of the tool. This is the simple text that you just get with one click. On the other hand, you can also use the text tool to drag a text window. And this is, I'm going to keep the text as it is. This is where you get a paragraph text, multi-line text. The big difference between this one and this one is, first of all, you can see it's all single lines. So when I double click this text and I'm start to adding something to it, it will just add and it will expand, make it larger to the right as long as it's necessary. This one has a fixed rectangular size. So if you type in something in here, it will just squeeze in and make the lines break into a new line. It will automatically divide the words and so on. And also, if the box that is in, so this rectangular frame here, if the frame is getting too small for the amount of text that's in it, then you can see there's a red plus. That means, hey, there's more text in there. So you either make the text window larger, or you start a new text window. Also, this text window here, when you change it in size, it will only make the text like flow differently. So when you change it to this size, then it flows differently. Then you have a smaller column. If you rotate your column, you notice that the text always stays horizontal. It's just a column that is rotated. I'm gonna undo that right away. Okay. While if you take this text and you make the frame around it larger, it will change the font size. Make sure you hold your shift key, because otherwise your letters will get distorted. So if you want to just change the size, pull it larger, make sure you hold your shift key, because then it keeps the size proportionally undistorted. Okay, so if you rotate this piece of text, then of course the whole text rotates. So if you are, for example, drawing a map and you want to place location names on it, you know, cities like Vienna, then you usually use the single line text with one click. This text is always horizontal, so no need to rotate it. If you write a location name, for example, a river name, river names are, no, let's go for a map that shows a street. So here is, if you want to type as a city, you type Vienna, then it's obviously not rotated text. If it is a street, let's call it Main Street. Main Street, and Main Street is running in an angle, then you can take the text and make sure it is aligned to your street. So then you usually have it rotated like this. If it's a different element, then I'll show you later how to do it. This, of course, now let's see the font style. If you want to change the fonts of your text, you just select your whole frame, or you just double click a certain part of it. And the best way is to open the corresponding window. So, for example, if you want to change the fonts and so on, here is window, and you can see under type, there are different windows there. One is character, for example. Character is where you choose which character you want. So here it is. Either the whole frame is changed, so you select the whole frame and then pick a different, pick a different style, or you just select, double click into your text element, and then you, So once again, this one, double click and then select one word or something, and then you can make this one, for example, no, there's no bold here. Let's go for here, this one. So you have a different font only for one word. Same thing here, select the whole thing or select only only a few words. All the other elements, you know, size is here. How many? See, 12 points is something that we know is quite large, but readable on an A4 paper. Yeah, leading, kerning, and so on, distances between them. What's also quite interesting when you are dealing with the paragraph text is the paragraph option. Do you want to have it left aligned or center aligned, or you want to block it, you're justified it with the last line aligned left, and so on. Here are all your options. Make sure when the column is really small, and right now this is a really small column, don't try and use a justified paragraph, because see what happens, it kind of sometimes it has to stretch certain words, then you get many line breaks here because all the longer words all have to be broken, and then you got all these those holes in there that look like rivers or like caves that go through your text elements. So in general, when you have very narrow columns like you would have in a newspaper, check out the newspaper. Usually they don't make too narrow columns, and when they use justified paragraph only when the column has a certain width, but nothing is speaks against a left aligned paragraph. Good. Also other things, you know, like how you can all be found here. Open type and so on. So that's all the things for characters that you can pick there. Good. Then I promise there's also another element that is here under the text element. There's two things. First of all, here's a vertical type tool. I'm not recommending actually to use a vertical type tool. When you look out in the real world, when is it ever used? It's maybe used when there is hotel written outside on a sign of your hotel, but any other word is really hard to read, and usually it's not a really helpful format. But that is the vertical type tool. If you for some reason need it, here it is. It's on the bottom here, and there's also type on a path tool. Two things that I think of right now where you could use it. First of all, if you have, let's say you are having a circle, we're going to draw circles later on. Here's a circle, and it's like a seal or something, or you want to do a logo for that. You can use the type on path tool, then click on the path, and then type something like, I don't know, Federal Bureau of Investigation or seal of the United States, and so on. So here would be type along a path. But what you could use is, for example, if you want to type the name of, if you look on a map, sometimes mountains or mountain ranges, not like peaks, but whole mountain ranges, like the Himalaya or something like this, they are written on a path that might look like this. So maybe something like this. And that's an ugly curve. Sorry about that. Yeah, here it is. And now I use the type along, and then I call it a little bit earlier, and then I should like it so like this, and larger. Where's my Windows? Where's my type character size? That asks for something larger. Okay, So that would be a possibility for having a text along a path, so along a circle or something, and then along any path. But we're going to talk about paths or graphic elements in a minute. That's almost the most important stuff about text. Let's repeat it quickly. Really important to have text on an extra layer, so you're able to turn off and turn on all text elements. Of course, you can use more than one layer for text elements or a layer inside the layer. You have the regular type tool that allows you to type one word or a paragraph of words. You can have a text, type it along a path, so you need to have a path first and then click on it and it will draw the words on a path. And you have the vertical type tool to write something like here, the word hotel. The most important window that you need for text is the type character. You can choose what kind of font style and if it's bold or italic and so on, and the sizes and the line distances and so on, paragraph options and so on. You can also copy paste from other programs and it will copy paste them usually in a paragraph. Let me show you one more thing, and here is I'm going to make the rectangle around my paragraph really small. I'm going to make it so just half of the text fits in. We know then we get this red plus that will tell me, hey, there is more text, but it's just not visible. When you click on this plus, you can actually draw a new column and it will continue. So here it is. Let me make this. So now they are linked together. So if I add some text in here, you can see that the text is kind of running or flowing from one column into the next column. So if you have a couple of columns arranged and then you need to edit your text, it will take care of the text which is in the column. Okay, so much for our text elements, and now I would like to just give you a brief introduction into graphic elements. There will be much more in upcoming videos about graphic elements. So graphic elements, besides pictures and text elements, I'm going to make another layer for those. First, there's more. Let's start with the graphic, the geometrical primitives, and this is the here the fifth tool on the left side, the rectangle tool. So there is you can have a set of standard forms here: rectangles, circles, polygons, stars, and lines. Let's start with the rectangle tool. And when you draw a rectangle, doesn't matter if it sticks outside the paper, still there. If you draw a rectangle like this, it usually has, let me get out of the rectangle tool, it has a fill color and it has a stroke color. When you select it, you can see right now it's filled in black and it has no stroke. So if you want to have no filling and a black stroke, here's a button to switch the two. So no stroke will become no filling and the black filling will become a black stroke. It has to be selected. So now you can see it has a black stroke. Or, yeah, once you draw any object and you draw a new object then, a new rectangle, it will have the same properties as the old one. So it will be having the same black stroke, no filling as the previous one. If you want to have a rectangle in a very specific size, of course you can select your rectangle, look at the properties and adjust the size here, width and height, and also the position of the rectangle. Remember, top left corner on the paper and so on. But if you want to draw it right away in a certain size, you go to your rectangle tool and you don't click and drag it, but you just click once and then it asks for a 20 by 20 rectangle, 20 by 20 millimeters. Okay, that's how you can start right away with a certain size. Now the looks, when you select it, to change the color of the filling or the stroke, you can just, let's fill it quickly. I'm going to switch between filled and no stroke. And when you now click on the fill with a double click, that will open a window and you can pick whatever color you like. So this is a typical Adobe color picker. Those of you who've seen it before, the most common one is the hue, saturation and brightness here, because you got all the hues like the rainbow. It's like the color wheel straightened out, linear. So you pick your hue first. So what kind of color, what kind of hue do you want? Then what kind of saturation is actually left or right. So here it's more saturated, this is less saturated, so it's the more grayish it gets, the less saturation, the more. And the brightness is actually up and down. So darker and brighter the color. So you can just click anywhere here. If you want, you can also use a specific RGB code, red, green, blue, or if you, for example, doing a logo in it for a company, they have their fixed colors, then you can also type in the RGB or the CMYK codes. Same thing, CMYK translated. You can also use the web code, and this is the hashtag, and then it's 6-digit number. That stands for, not all colors are available for web codes, but most of them are. You can also pick here and say, I want only web colors, and then you can see that here there's not that many colors available, but every one of it has a certain code, 3399CC. That's a hexadecimal code. Let's turn that off. I don't want the web colors. I'm doing a print layout, and I'm picking a bright blue filling here. Okay, and now you see the filling changes. So if I want the stroke to change, here's one that has a black stroke. Then of course I have to select the black stroke. Right now the black stroke has a different color mode here, CMYK code, but you can, you can try different versions. You can create it with the CMYK colors. You can also pick anything in the CMYK spectrum, or you can also use, which is really common, is the color. No, that's the color. Sorry. The color guides. No, it's the swatches here. Here they are. If you have a document and you're always using the same colors, for example, this is a blue that I would like to use more often, then you can, let's select this element. Here is the blue color, and then you can take it and pull it into, here it landed, so there it is. So you can store your color here, you can load it, every one of those palettes, brushes, symbols, swatches, you can load elements here from a library menu. There's some certain sets of colors and so on. I'll show you this a little bit later, but right now we just want to pick any color. So you can also select the stroke here, make sure you select the color there, and then you click any color here, and now it's a pink, red, let's take this red stroke. Okay, so the swatches is something when you want to adjust colors, you have open a lot. If you have an element with lines, then it's also interesting to see how thick the line is. And when you select the element, you can see the appearance here on the right side. It is not filled. We saw that here. It's not filled. It is a red stroke. You can also click on this and get the swatches right away. See, you can pick a different color there. And if stroke is underlined, right now it has 0.3 millimeter. So you can, let's make it 1 millimeter thick, the stroke. And if the stroke is underlined, you can also open another window for strokes. The same window is, I guess, also here available, stroke, and then it opens, the same way. So the stroke window will, again, how thick it is, what is the weight of the line. You can define if it's only one line, how the end looks, how the corner looks like, and so on. If you want to have a dashed line, you can define the gaps, how it starts, and so on. So there's a lot of options here if you want arrowheads on your lines and so on. So that is the stroke options for your element. And that works, of course, with all the standard elements, even with the star tool that you can create in the same look. If you want to draw a line that is a general line, not one that is a rectangle or a circle, you can also you should use the pen tool. There's two pen tools, a pen tool and a curvature pen tool. Let's start with the regular pen tool first. You can draw both lines and curves. You can just, here's my pen, and you start to click as long as you draw horizontal and vertical, you will get straight lines. Also if you draw diagonal, of course. But if you click and drag a handle, you can draw curves. You can draw Bezier curves with your pen tool. It takes a little practice to draw curves like this, but it can be quite nice. When you're done with drawing, just hit Escape or click on a different tool. So that is the pen tool that allows you to draw both straight lines and curved lines. And the curvature tool, basically you just click, and between the clicks you will always get of course, much nicer, but still a curve. Okay, that is only curves. The points of your curves or of your Bezier curve with the pen tool, you can always adjust them later on. I'm just giving you a quick preview. When you select your curve, you see up here that we have two different selection tools, the selection tool and with the shortcut A, the direct selection tool. The selection tool allows you to select objects like the blue rectangle. The direct selection tool allows you to select parts of the object. For example, this corner, and move only this corner, or this edge and move this edge, or select corner here and move it and adjust the handle. So the direct selection tool allows you to select parts of an object, of an element, while the selection tool selects the whole object itself. Okay, so far I think we have covered the basics of how to use. Let's get into Illustrator. Check out all the elements, draw a couple things, check out all the text and graphic elements tool. I'll be right back with another video showing you much more details about graphic elements, and we'll also do a little bit more about pictures and so on. So stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you like what you saw. Leave some comments if you need some additional information or if you need something extra. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.